Welcome to Divorce Mortgage Strategies, brought to you by the Divorce Lending Association, where clarity meets strategy in the financial side of divorce. Whether you're a family law professional, a financial expert, or someone navigating the complexities of divorce yourself, this podcast is your go-to resource for trusted insight into how real property and mortgage financing intersect with divorce outcomes. We don't just talk about houses. We talk about strategic solutions that protect futures. Let's dive in. Today, we welcome host, certified divorce lending professional, John Marroni, and his guest, Cat Dellaire, divorce and co-parenting strategist.
Welcome to another edition of the Divorce Resource Spotlight. I'm John Marroni, certified divorce lending professional and mortgage advisor. What I've learned over the years is that successful divorce outcomes often involve the support of the right professional. It takes the right team. In this series, I speak with the professionals who help individuals and families make informed financial, legal, and personal decisions during divorce. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Cat Dellaire. Cat has more than 30 years of experience providing counseling and support services to children and families. Her professional background includes work in public schools, juvenile justice, adoption, mental health clinics, and private practice in both New York and Massachusetts. Following her own experience navigating a high conflict divorce and custody battle, Cat has dedicated her work to helping families navigate divorce and co-parenting with greater clarity, strategy, and support. Cat, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you are here. So, Cat, to get us started, can you tell us a little more about yourself, your background, and what led you to focus on helping families navigate divorce and co-parenting?
Absolutely. So I have many years of experience as a child and family therapist. And often, because I specialize with anxiety, families would bring their children, particularly teens, in for anxiety. And then I would find out almost 50% of the time that divorce was somewhere on the horizon for that family. So I really started to realize that children are the symptom bearer of what is going on in the larger family unit. So in that process, I was subpoenaed for a couple custody cases. And then in 2010, I had, and I call it an opportunity because I learned a lot of things. I myself went through a very high conflict divorce. My daughter was very young, and I realized even as a trained therapist, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to navigate the legal system. That divorce process actually later became a 2-year custody battle. And being a social worker and wanting to make the world a brighter place for everybody, I really came out the other end of that, wanting to empower clients so that they knew how to navigate the legal process in the best way possible, not just for themselves, but for their children as well. And so I went back, I trained as a divorce mediator, a divorce coach, a guardian ad litem, and I've been doing that kind of forensics work ever since.
So let me ask you then, for parents beginning the divorce process, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people make when it comes to co-parenting?
I think even in just divorce in general, a lot of people, you got to figure when you're talking about divorce, everything in your life is up in the air for negotiation. And so for even high functioning adults, people tend to go back to their like lizard brain, right? That's that fight, flight, emotional, reactive kind of part of your brain. And we kind of forget about the exclusive, the executive functioning part of your brain. And so when you're running on emotions or reactivity or feeling triggered, we tend to make really bad decisions for ourselves and not focus on the fact that divorce is a business transaction. The courts are really interested in you having a parenting plan and breaking up your assets in a fair and equitable way, and that's about it. So all that emotion can kind of cloud our vision and prevent us from making really smart, logical decisions. So that's step number one. The other thing that I talk to people about is when we're thinking about co-parenting is really being able to tell the difference between your emotional needs and issues and your children's emotional needs and issues. A lot of parents tend to spill their stuff onto their kids unintentionally, even well-meaning parents, and that can burden your children as they're also going through a difficult transition.
So with that, I mean, how can parents separate their feelings towards their former spouse from their responsibilities as co-parents?
So I'm a big therapy, coaching, finding other people that have gone through the process. I think group support is really amazing. Self-care is really important because when you're keeping your central nervous system calm, you're able again to be more intentional in your reactions to everything that's going around you. The one thing that I do caution people is if you sign up for therapy, which is great, but please make sure that therapist understands the legal process of divorce. I know even in my case, I had a great therapist, but he, when I would go in and talk about how frustrated I was and how angry I was, would kind of support that. And he'd say, "Oh, that's terrible. The court system's unfair. You got to call your attorney." And because of that, again, that emotional triggered response, I ended up calling my attorney thousands of times when I didn't need to. I wasn't able to tell the difference between alarms and noise and what I really needed to focus on. And I ended up spending a lot more money and having a lot more distress than I needed to. So there are therapists that are trained in the legal process, and most divorce coaches are, of course, as well.
All right. So as they're going through a divorce, right? Now, in terms of the children, like what are some of the signs that the children may be struggling emotionally during divorce, and what should parents be watching out for?
So I always tell people there's no best time to get divorced with kids because
Yeah.
sometimes people will say, "Oh, is it better when they're younger, older, college age?" There's no great time. There's pluses and minuses to each developmental stage. I am not a big believer in putting your child automatically into therapy for divorce. There are folks that get through divorce fairly well, and research shows it's not divorce that damages children, it's ongoing conflict.
Okay.
So I tell parents, pay attention. If you see your child starting to regress, display signs of separation anxiety. Maybe they're bedwetting and they had been potty trained for a couple of years. Maybe they can't sleep by themselves. Now, maybe you have a teenager who's acting out and having parties and drinking and skipping school. So unless you see kind of big red flag behaviors that are showing you that your child's really suffering, I'm not you don't have to necessarily engage in therapy, but it is something to pay attention to. If you have a high conflict case and your child's still functioning very well, I think having a family therapist or a child therapist is really helpful, just not only for documentation purposes, because you have a neutral person that can help you weigh in on your custody battle, but also just somebody who's there because high conflict families we know do things like projection. They project onto the child their needs. They sometimes weaponize parenting. They sometimes try to pull the child in one way or the other. So those are also reasons to put your child in therapy.
So in these high conflict situations, like what practical strategies can parents use to reduce the conflict or create a healthier communication?
So I will say a lot of my folks that start working with me, both women and men,
Yeah.
come in, they're very type A people. They love to be 10 steps ahead. They love to really know that they're doing things the right way by their children. And sometimes the best way to kind of manage all of this is learning how to let go. So
Okay.
it's really learning how to focus on the bigger picture. So I will ask my parents, and I do a lot of co-parenting coaching together with both of the parents in the room. And I'll say,
Yeah.
what is your child going to say about this event when they're 25 to their therapist? And sometimes the parents will chuckle and realize, oh, probably nothing. It's probably pretty insignificant. It's something more about us, right?
Yeah.
So, in high conflict situations, the letting go is really focusing on the bigger picture. It's focusing on how damaging is this really to my child, or is this something that's more important to me in the bigger picture and in the long run? I think it's sometimes letting go and letting the other parent figure it out, even though it's different than the way you do it in your home. So we talk about there's a style of co-parenting called parallel parenting, which is actually just another version of co-parenting. And it helps a lot of families stay out of conflict. And it's basically the idea of I do what I do in my house with the kids, and my ex-spouse does what they do with the kids. And unless it's a major issue like my child ran away to New York City or, like something really big, we don't necessarily have to agree on it nor talk about it, actually.
All right. So in a case like that, you get the two type A, and one of the spouses totally gets it, on board with your plan, and the other one, knows the problem. At that point, would you just like say, I need one-on-one with this parent to kind of, you know, explain things? Does that ever come up?
Yeah, so I will say, I mean, here's the other thing. If it only takes one person to change a dynamic. So if I can
Okay.
coach, even in situations where there's narcissism, because I do a lot of families like that, But if I can coach that person how to respond to the toxic parent in a
Okay.
non-triggering way,
Mhm.
it actually tamps down the intensity of the conflict and it helps the child in the long run.
Okay. All right. So it doesn't always require the parents to get along to have a
No.
successful co-parent. Okay. All right. So
And,
it's just,
and here's the thing, even in high conflict situations,
yeah.
all parents want the same thing for their child. It's the how that they argue on, right? Because
Right.
nobody wants damaged children. Nobody wants to feel responsible that they hurt their kids. Even badly behaved parents underneath, that's what they want. So that's what I mean. Sometimes when I'm co-parenting coaching, it's really, what are you in charge of? What aren't you in charge of? What can you let go of? What are the new boundaries? So often high conflict is because the parents haven't learned how to totally energetically separate and let the other parent be, right? They're still engaging, they're still arguing, they're still texting 20 texts a day. So once we start to like help them understand that part of it, how they can energetically just be two separate humans with two separate identities, that also helps bring down the conflict.
All right. So you have both professional and personal experience with high conflict divorce.
Yes.
And so without discussing anything confidential, like what lessons have you learned that might help parents who feel overwhelmed right now?
Well, I definitely, and I share very openly with my clients my own journey.
Yeah.
It was 2010, so it was a little bit of time. It's good so I can look in my rearview mirror and see it, and it's not present and triggering me. I think that helps me help my folks. I think for me, when my ex was talking about trying to have full custody, I thought I was in the fight of my life and I responded reactively to everything. I mean, the mama bear energy came out. You hear about these stories like moms lifting cars off of their infants. It's because it's like this energy that's like, I'm going to protect my child no matter what. And because of that, I came from this really reactive. I wasn't empowered. I wasn't knowledgeable about the legal system. And all I needed was one divorce coach to look at me and say, hey, by the way, Kat, you've been the primary parent. There is nothing you're doing that would qualify you to lose your custody. Just that one sentence would have
Yep.
saved me tens of thousands of dollars. It would have helped me not be so, I just felt so confused and disempowered and triggered. And the other thing is, and this is part of the learning and the mindset too, and the healing, but a divorce is an event, it's not your life. And when it starts consuming you to the point that now it's your identity, right? Like I'm the angry fighting spouse in a court system. That is not good. That's not healthy because life keeps moving and there is life post divorce, post custody battle, post all of it, all the mess.
Yeah. And the question is, what do you want your life to look like?
Exactly. So you can move from like victim and reactive to author and creator. So that's a
Okay.
big step that we make in the work that we do with my clients.
Yeah. So, I mean, so if you could give like one piece of advice to divorcing parents, particularly those with young children, like what would it be?
Just one.
You might
So
have already said
often
it.
when I say to people, and I think it kind of lends itself to the story that I was just sharing, your success comes outside of the courtroom. It is not, I think one of the biggest, and I don't want to say inflame, one of the places where people go wrong is they have really wrong expectations of the family court. I remember even myself, I had this vision that a jury would look at the judge and tell the judge that, yes, my ex-husband was such a jerk, and everybody would rule in my favor. I know that sounds crazy, but a lot of people have fantasies like that going into family court. So I think managing your expectations and realizing that your success comes from your relationship with your child, which is separate from your ex-spouse's relationship with your child. And that you want to look back on this and look at yourself as you showed up in the best possible way. You took the high road and you were present for your children. And that is really important.
Okay. So when it's going, this is kind of like a team approach question.
Yes.
What should someone look for when building their divorce team, and how can the right professionals work together to create better outcomes for both parents and children?
I am a huge, as you know, that's how we met. I'm a huge
Yeah.
believer in the team approach. I mean, because I think a lot of people just assume their lawyer has all the answers, right? But your lawyer, in the way I describe it, is almost like your PCP. They know a lot about everything, but there's some cases in some areas where you might need a specialist, like a certified divorce financial analyst or real estate specialist or or child therapist or a mediator, right? There's all these different team members that can be part of it. I know it feels overwhelming when you start this, but we know that people who incorporate a team and a good team actually have better outcomes for their divorce because they're getting all of the information. They're more empowered. They're just more aware, more knowledgeable about what's going on.
Okay.
And it
All right.
feels so great to have professionals talk. It's almost like reparenting, right? I have these
Yeah.
professionals that are talking to each other in a moment in my life where I'm feeling really vulnerable and unsure.
Oh, that's great. All right, wonderful. So, Kat, thank you for sharing your insights today. And one thing I hope listeners take away from these conversations is that while divorce can be incredibly difficult, the way parents navigate the process can have a lasting impact on their children and on the future co-parenting relationship. So, Kat, if someone would like to learn more about your practice or connect with you, what is the best way to reach you?
So I work with folks across the country. My website is www.thecoparentingstrategist.com. And definitely feel free to send me a message through there and I can offer some help.
All right, great. And thank you again for joining me.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you to everyone watching and listening. If you found this conversation helpful, please follow for future Divorce Resource Spotlight episodes, where we'll continue introducing professionals who help individuals and families make informed decisions during and after divorce. I'm John Marroni. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for joining us on Divorce Mortgage Strategies, powered by the Divorce Lending Association. If today's conversation brought you clarity, insight, or inspiration, we encourage you to subscribe and share this episode with others in your circle. For more resources, or to connect with a certified divorce lending professional in your area, visit divorcelendingassociation.com. And be sure to download the free Divorce Strategy Hub mobile app for tools, education, and support designed to guide you through the financial side of divorce. Until next time, remember, in divorce, the mortgage isn't the problem, it's the plan.